Adam Kramer. Hope you're having a great day. Welcome into the game here in Tuscaloosa.
Good to talk to you, my friend.
So a quick trip to Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, a quick one. This is my second time down here, in about a month, I guess, because I was at Missouri and was at the facility today talking to a couple of people, sat down with Tua briefly, which was fun. And I always, like I tell you all the time when we get to hang out, I always love coming down here, just not just because you get to talk to some of the best football players in America, just the general vibe down here is good. And as cold as it is for you all, it's like 20 degrees in Chicago, so this is an upgrade for me, believe it or not.
Yeah, and we're all complaining. I mean, we're griping and complaining. It's 46 here, and it's just like, I mean, we feel like we're in Antarctica here in Tuscaloosa.
I mean, it's not warm. Like I won't pretend, but man, oh man. So for me, this is balmy. But I understand why you guys would like maybe a little uptick in the weather for sure.
All right, so what are you working on with Tua? I'm just curious. Can you give us anything? I mean, can you give us a little bit of a tease?
Yeah, I mean, this is not a secret or anything. I think that everybody wants to write about Tua if you cover national college football, right? I mean, and so just speaking to him was great. And I think I really want to try and capture. I think his story to Alabama has been well documented. So to answer your question, I think I came down here to kind of figure that out. And one of the things I was able to capture from the Missouri game was how different this is from a historical sense, not just nationally, but locally. And then also just, this is not a program where individuality from a player standpoint, often stands out. And I don't mean that as a negative. Like Julio Jones, there's been some freaks. Julio's probably the freakiest of the freaks. Okay, some athletic freaks that have gotten a ton of, recognition in a variety of capacities and deservingly so. And then here's this 6-foot quarterback who doesn't have the cleanest throwing motion, who is doing things that just are absolutely unbelievable in scale, albeit on injured quite a bit of the year, to be quite honest. So I think it's really trying to have to capture what we're seeing, because I truly believe it is unbelievable what we're trying to see, and trying to put that into words is going to be a fun task for me. I can't wait to do it.
Well, and it's a little bit of a challenge, and I have this trouble quite often even describing what this guy's been able to do. I mean, if you think about this, I mean, look at it in small context. Nick Saban has adjusted his offensive game plan because of this historic quarterback. Think about that for a minute.
Yep. Yeah. No, I mean, this is something, give Lane Kiffin a little props.
Sure.
Right? I think that was when it's at least the brick wall started to fall, and Nick Saban let people have their hands inside the offense and start to make it a little bit different. Look, I'll equate this to Michigan. Look what Michigan's doing this year with Shea Patterson and the success they've had with the zone read. This is a little bit different with Tua. They run obviously some of that. But when you have the weapons that he has, I mean, and that's a big part of it. And quite honestly, and I'll save some of my better quotes for the story. That's what I got to do. But the one thing that struck me about Tua today is he would much rather talk about his weapons than himself, which is no surprise. But when you look at the pieces that he's surrounded with, from the tight end to obviously, 3-4 wide receivers to 3 running backs, to a really good offensive line that probably could play a little bit better based on keeping them upright, but still a great offensive line. I mean, that is a part of this that I think can go a little undercover just because Tua has just been so amazing. And a big, to your point, getting the tight end involved, throwing the ball to Josh Jacobs. Obviously, in weeks where the deep ball is not going to work as well like it didn't work last week, still finding creative ways to score. This Alabama team is just a lot of fun, and it's not just the quarterback, it's not just the wideouts, it's the way they distribute. A lot of that, you're right, boils down to offensive philosophy.
Do you think Tua knows what he's accomplishing in Tuscaloosa? Do you think he is caught up in the moment, or do you think he just totally blocks all this out and just plays football?
No, I don't. It'd be hard not to at least recognize, based off of the reaction around you. And then we talked about that a little bit. What is going on here? There's a reason you can't really go anywhere without being mobbed. Like things are happening and people are excited. But I honestly think this is a guy that is truly most comfortable on the football field. And I think this is a guy that regardless of where he's playing, genuinely is just completely at ease. And all the other things that we talk about that interest us and interest fans, that get media people like me excited, he's kind of indifferent about. But this is too big. This is too chaotic. This is too historic, potentially. We'll see what happens here in the next, couple of months for him to be, obscure to you. This is very, very real. I think he's aware of it. But also, what vibe I got from him? And I mean this in a compliment. When I sat down with Sam Darnold last year, Sam was a guy that really struck me as a guy that was not bothered by anything, good or bad. Like, just was a guy that just had this really great vibe to him, and that you could tell was going to be really pretty consistent. And I got that same vibe from Tua, that I think good, bad, in between, man. This is the guy that really is going to roll well with whatever comes at him.
And I hate to point this out. Did you happen to see any of the video that surfaced from a construction project yesterday, from some kind of crane? Now, let me explain, okay? Tua's from the Big Island, right? So this is really cold to Tua Tagovailoa, right? I mean, this is. Yeah. I mean, if Alabama, we're over here, shivering. Okay, it's really cold. Yesterday was a miserable day, Adam, here because it was rainy, it was wet, it was cold, it was windy. It was everything that you didn't want to be. I even thought about skipping Nick Saban's press conference and just listening to it on the radio and coming onto the station. It was that nasty. I didn't want to get out. But I did. I went in the building, and it was all of about 7 or 8 minutes. It wasn't that great. But the video surfaced of Tua Tagovailoa on a practice field by himself out there working on basic mechanics in the ring.
I've got a fun thing for this story. I kid you not. Tua watched that video for the first time while I was in the room.
Oh, wow.
And because I had not seen it. I was traveling. With the weather you guys had, the weather getting out of Chicago was a mess. I was disconnected yesterday. But we kind of watched it together, to be quite honest.
Oh, wow.
And, which is cool, right? Which is funny. Cause
very cool.
Oh, yeah, no, it was cool because seeing his reaction to something like that and having some of the best players in America, introduce it to him was a neat thing. His response was, oh, all right. That's kind of what, it's kind of funny. I can't, it's just, this is sort of the life. It sort of spawned into we kind of watched it together, to be quite honest.
Oh, wow.
And, which is cool, right? Which is funny. Cause
very cool.
Oh, yeah, no, it was cool because seeing his reaction to something like that and having some of the best players in America, introduce it to him was a neat thing. His response was, oh, all right. That's kind of what, it's kind of funny. I can't, it's just, this is sort of the life. It sort of spawned into a really interesting point, which is everything he does from this point forward, whether it's going to class, whether it's throwing a football, whether it's throwing a football by yourself in the rain, is just expect that someone's watching because people care. And I think he's okay with that. Truthfully, I think that'll be fine.
So Adam, you are confirming that was Tua Tagovailoa yesterday. That wasn't like some doctored video, right? Is that what you're confirming?
I was told nothing that was not him.
Okay, okay.
There was no reaction from him saying, that's not me. So I guess you could offer that as a confirmation via non-response, right? That seems fair.
It's probably that surreal moment that he's looking at it going, are you kidding me? I thought I found a private place. Because if you know where he was at, Adam, it's tucked over in a quarter behind, where in other words, where anybody in the football building couldn't see him. So he's at the L part of the football field that he's trying to get away because, he's trying to get away. You go to the indoor facility, it's all visible. If you go right there in front of the football building, everybody's looking like, what's this guy doing? So he finds this one little corner, and this is me just guessing, that he says, okay, I can escape. I can work on the basic mechanics. I can go back and work on the things, and then somebody bust him from, I don't know if it was a construction crane. Whatever it was. And he going, oh, man. I mean, it kind of puts everything into reality that he cannot escape the spotlight of being the quarterback at the University of Alabama.
And that's going to be, no matter what happens next, there's going to be some of that for the rest of his life. No matter what happens the rest of this season, what happens next year, what happens the year after that when he might be, a really high selection in the NFL draft. I mean, this is sort of his reality that he's built. And here's the crazy thing about it to me, man, is that how long ago does that national championship feel to you? Because that feels like it was about 2 years ago to me.
Sure.
3 years.
Yeah, it does feel a while.
I mean, that's 10 months. And you think about, and we talked about it a little bit, is you think about what your life would look like. But just put yourself, and I think that's part of Tua's story that's really kind of fun, right? I'll never throw a football like he will. I'll never go to LSU and beat the team. But at least I can imagine what emotionally this past year might feel like. How would I react if that was me? What would my demeanor be? Who would I surround myself with? And obviously he's got a tremendous support system locally with his family. Alabama does a wonderful job with him. Truthfully, they do a fantastic job in helping him to manage the hysteria. And I think he's just got a really good head on his shoulders too. Because, I can't imagine my life changing in a single night, which it did. And then having the offseason that he had, which was chaotic and bizarre with all the Jalen stuff, and then somehow surpassing the most unrealistic expectations. It's unbelievable when you consider just how wild this last 10 months have been.
Adam, do you pick up that it's bigger? And I've asked you this before, but when you get a chance to visit with Tua, we try to pick your brain a little bit. Do you think it is still bigger than football for Tua Tagovailoa? In other words, there's something out there higher that he's trying to achieve.
I do think he recognizes, when you have this kind of stardom, there is a burden that comes with it, which is people videoing you no matter where you go, the pressure to perform well and also to carry yourself well. But I also think, and this is something I will write about, there's a part of this, a spotlight, a platform, a power that Tua is just scratching the surface. And clearly someone that's deep in his faith, clearly someone that is much more about football and loves the sport, but is more about that. There is no doubt that this is not just a football story. This is someone who's come thousands of miles to do something, and obviously now is going to be looked at and looked upon in a variety of different ways. So, look, we're gonna look at Tua, the football player, and that's part of, honestly, my job in trying to cover him is to capture the essence of kind of his emotions and what he's here to do. Ultimately, we're going to judge him in some ways by what happens in these next, 6-8 weeks, which is unfair. But as you know, man, that's kind of how this works. But clearly there's a very deep, caring human being under there. That was evident, and that should come as no surprise given his parents and everything else. Like, this is a guy that is really, I use the term, his head on straight. I mean, I just get that vibe, man. You just have a good vibe in speaking around him. And football, in a lot of cases, at times just feels like the backdrop.
I'm trying to ask this because all of my audience is saying, when are you going to ask him the question? When are you going to ask him the question? You got to remember now, for 2 days, we've played the knee game, okay? I mean, we've guessed on that knee. We've analyzed that knee from a distance. I mean, did he walk in with ice on his knee? I mean, you didn't accidentally kick it, did you, Adam? I mean, you okay? I mean, you didn't damage the quarterback. I mean, because Alabama's national championship success hinges on that knee that you were looking at. How did it look?
Yeah, I'll give you the vibe from what I got, which was him walking in fine, sitting down in a chair, looking completely at ease, saying he felt really good. I have no information about where he's at or anything like that. But the vibe I got, and this is the vibe that, truthfully, I know that's been given out the last couple of weeks from Nick Saban is, he's going to be all right. It was hard to take anything away. Would Alabama let me talk to this guy if things were not all right? You know how these things work, Ryan.
No, I don't think they would. I don't think they would.
They would. Truthfully, and I hate to approach it that way, and I know that sounds probably bizarre for people who don't know how this works. Clearly this is something that has bothered him in games, but it was not something in the least. We barely even talked about it, which is kind of odd when you think about, I'm sure, how important, and it is an important storyline it is locally, and should he play this week, should he not? And yet, me sitting down with him, there was no even reason to ask because it does not seem like this is something that's bothering him, for whatever that's worth, which is probably not much. But the vibe that I've gotten from Nick Saban was very much the vibe that I got today in meeting with him.
There we go. Adam, when are you going to publish this article, man? Because, we're going to be clicking on Bleacher Report, hitting the F5 button over and over and over until you publish this article.
Yeah. So I got a few coming up, man. Actually, the story that my first Alabama story is on Josh Jacobs. And in truth, this is a story I've been working on for over a year, on and off. And Josh is probably one of my favorite football people, forget about Alabama, on the planet. And I think that story will show why. And that's going to come next week before the Iron Bowl. And then I think what we're going to have done is have the Tua story before the SEC championship game. I think that's the plan. So, yeah, I'm excited, man. This is, how this time of year is when it's time to write about Alabama again. So we've got those two, and then we've got a bunch of other stories coming up. So I'm looking forward to that.
Well, and you've also got to gather for that possible trip to New York City, too.
Yeah, and then what? And then where are we going? Dallas?
Yeah, as long as Oklahoma doesn't slip in the back door, we will go to Dallas, and I hope we go to Dallas because Dallas is a fun trip.
Oh man, how about that hospitality suite?
Oh,
that is those massage chairs. That's what I'm in it for, is the massage chair
and unlimited Reese's cups, Adam. Unlimited Reese's
cups. They got they had the open bar there after 5 o'clock for very professional, hardworking journalists like me after a long day, have a glass of wine or three. So I'm in it for Dallas, my friend, and I hope that I imagine we'll be catching up here pretty soon if that's the case.
Adam, we appreciate you for being a part of the show, man. Safe travels back to Illinois. Be safe, my friend. Thank you again for giving us a couple of minutes of your time here in Tuscaloosa, man.
Of course, buddy. I'll talk to you soon.